Hello and welcome to another Christian Voice New Zealand podcast. Hard to believe, but this is number 152. And regardless of whether you've watched all or just some, I thank you for your support. Hello, I'm Mike Bain, and today I'm unsure where to start as there's so much happening, so much to talk about and so much to report. So I think I'll just encapsulate it all under the heading of New Zealand sucks. Pretty harsh, but you don't have to drill down to understand why. Right now, I don't feel like a citizen of the country that I grew up in. To be fair to say, I feel more like a stranger in the land which was once labelled as God's own. While New Zealand's natural beauty looks familiar, it remains unchanged to a point, but its natural events can alter some of what we used to see. Now, lots of people before my time spoke about the pink and white terraces around Rotorua, but they disappeared. An avalanche on Aoraki Mount Cook altered its appearance, while the clip-ons on Auckland's bridge altered the appearance of Auckland. While I speak of the natural beauty we have in New Zealand, there was a beauty amongst the people, and I don't know if you've noted, it's changed dramatically. The beauty of love, kindness and happiness, along with a godly influence, has been replaced with division, inequality, distrust, envy, hatred, tribalism and secularism. Now, I'm old enough to remember the shock horror headlines back in the 1969-70 Otago Daily Times when the body of a young backpacker, Jennifer Mary Beard, was found murdered under the bridge at the Haast River. Now, there was a nationwide hunt for a killer. Everyone who owned a specific type of Vauxhall Velox car was under suspicion. While the killer remains free, that story and others like it in the years which followed dominated our news cycles for weeks and maybe months, and we cared. I said New Zealand sucks. It does, because of the nation's outrage we felt for the death of a hitchhiker back then is nowhere on the scale as the apathy that we feel today when we hear about a killing. Crazy, isn't it, when we see people on TV occasionally getting a bit of a mention because they're protesting the killing of innocents on both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and yet not a peep, no protest march, no outrage at the news of the death of another toddler at the hands of those who were supposed to care for him in New Zealand. So why? I ask, why is it we're prepared to march and show outrage for innocents killed in another country, but just shrug our shoulders and turn our backs on the bad happenings in our own country? Like those pink and white terraces, they became extinct. I feel as though our love and compassion for our children is on the verge of extinction, and that, to me, really sucks. The death of a child known as Ruthless Empire should have never been overlooked by us as a country. So what's happened to our compassion, our love for one another, that another little child is killed by his family and we say nothing at all? The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Now, I'm not one to judge, but silence has been a key component from the members of Parliament, who were quite loud in their condemnation over the past year of family violence, but just as loud as to where the blame lay. Now, you may recall Greens co-leader Marama Davidson, who at the time of her outburst was the Minister for the Prevention of Family and Sexual Violence. She condemned the perpetrators of domestic violence as white cis males. And Te Pāti Māori co-leader Rawiri Waititi has also spoken about the need to stop blaming Māori for child abuse, and yet statistics confirm that both MPs is wrong in their assertions. And yet the avalanche of silence, like the natural avalanche on Mount Cook I spoke about, has been noted. Rescue those who are unjustly sentenced to death. Don't stand back and let them die, according to the Bible in Proverbs 24:11. You know, we in New Zealand appear to be in a hurry these days, so much so that we've allowed ourselves to be distracted and become super busy. And like the original Auckland Bridge, we've clipped on an extra lane here to allow for the overflow that we've let into our world. It's like we don't want to be left behind and allow ourselves to be affected by everything happening outside of our own country, that we fail to see the traffic jam of uncertainty affecting our own neighbourhoods as we no longer travel down that Christian and charitable road, but down the cold road of self-entitlement and secularism. We can clip on every world protest in our lives, from Palestine, Black Lives Matter, gay rights, climate change, and anything else which has become fashionable to be outraged by since yesterday. But if we don't defend the basic right to life, then all the rest means nothing. Did you get that? If you don't defend the basic right to life, then all the rest means nothing. Now, New Zealand's changed. I see it every time I get on a bus and I go to the local dairy, the pizza shop, which isn't often. But you know what? It has nothing to do with people calling it by another name, although it's possibly a part of the issue. I'm not sure, but it seems like more of the world is now living in our land than naturalised New Zealanders, and with that comes change. Stranger in my own land, but I'm not alone in thinking that. So you can imagine what it was like for them to come to our country as strangers. But rest assured, regardless of where they came from or the circumstances they faced to get here, they, like me, will call it home. Maybe it's because of their insertion into our society. It could be the reasons why we no longer feel the outrage like they did when a hitchhiker was killed. After all, these new Kiwis have seen some awful things like their own families killed. But it may be too late to turn what was the real beauty in this country back to where it was, where innocence, love for one another, where we looked out for one another and we had a love for both God and country. We need to remain aware of what's happening in the world. We must be sensitive to the needs of our fellow man on this planet. But we should also not allow it to be a distraction to what is happening in our own country. I mentioned the phrase God and country before. I've spoken a lot about our country, but let me just say this about the God of the Bible. He's not distracted by events. He's planned to save us all from the evil growing in this world, and he'll act upon that plan soon. Many times in the Gospels, Jesus told his disciples to stay on the watch, keep watch for when the Son of Man returns. And when he does, ask yourself, will it then suck when you find yourself in the stranger in the kingdom of God?